All right, let's get to the loudest trio of commentators on air at Sky News. It's Senator Holly Hughes, Prue McSween and the mighty Richo. Good evening, team.
Okay.
Evening, Smithy.
Good to have you with us.
Good evening.
Richo, I'll ask you first. With a bit over 6 months to the next election, what's your call?
Well, I'd say it's very, very close, but I'd still have my money on Morrison. I think Albanese would need to be another point or two up before I'd start to think a victory was possible. In my view, when the campaign starts, it'll be a slight swing back to Morrison. So I think Labor's going to need to be well in front to win.
All right, Prue, we discussed this time last week about the fact that Albo was going to make the PM his number one target, and he started on that mission this week, didn't he?
Yeah, he sure did. But, he's firing empty bullets as far as I'm concerned. The guy really hasn't got a lot of credibility, in my opinion. He's been travelling the country, promising the world to the coal workers, the far north Queensland workers in particular. To me, it's empty. You can say what you like, but can you trust them? And sadly, they're on this romance having this romance with this net zero malarkey, and they're not worried about the jobs it's going to cost. And frankly, that is the big thing. When we come out of this terrible stupor that we're in, and having to face an election, decisions about an election, who can you trust? I mean, the sad thing is that because both parties, the major ones, are not doing that well, we might find ourselves in this manifestation of people going for the minor parties, which means whoever gets it is constipated and can't make decisions. All
right, that is a good segue into what I want to bring up next for you, Holly Hughes. Former Queensland Premier Campbell Newman has announced he's standing for a seat in the Senate, but for the Liberal Democrats. This is part of what he told Sky News this afternoon.
So to deal with COVID, we are in the 18th month or so of this crisis because all our politicians, all our bureaucrats nationally, federal and state, have stuffed this up. And I'm sick and tired of them being given a leave pass.
Campbell, Holly, got stuck into both parties, both major parties, and to the state governments in Queensland and Victoria this afternoon. Is any of that well-founded?
No, I don't think so at all. And looking at who the Liberal Democrats are currently recruiting, when we've been having a lot of conversations over the past 12, 18 months about the numbers of women in politics, they're kind of the definition of pale, stale and male at the moment. And looking at them, on top of that, every single one of them was given all of their career and all of their political identity and political start through the Liberal Party. One managed to lose his own seat, you remember, at a very tight election after a really interesting, in-depth article he gave around his family life. And the second one not only managed to lose his own seat after being elected, but managed to take the then government into opposition so deep that they're still trying to get out of it. So,
but as former Liberals,
really
they are only going to make it easier for Anthony Albanese, aren't they?
Well, I mean, see, this is what I enjoyed your little flashback of question time, because sitting in Senate question time, we don't get to see what happens in the reps. And the volume of questions coming from the Labor Party in the Senate just show how bereft they were of ideas. They're still peddling this fear campaign around AstraZeneca. Their poll group driven $300 cash if you get a jab. I mean, it was just like a reminder of what these guys are capable of. You want to talk about who's responsible, who's going to be able to look after the economy, was like cash for clunkers, school halls, checks to dead people. It was, all coming back. But the other thing that was really interesting to look at this week in Parliament, and be interesting to see what happens next week, I mean, you could almost hear the drums beating for Albanese's leadership. Bill Shorten is out there every single day, encouraging people to get the AstraZeneca, getting photos of himself getting his shot, out there promoting the vaccine rollout and encouraging people to get out there and say that's how we're going to get out of this, all while Albanese is rushing out to find candidates that have come out speaking against AstraZeneca. I mean, I made a speech this week. I think he's just looking for a point of difference. But I think it's fair to say Morrison and the opposition leader, I think at this point in the time, we might need to say Morrison and whoever's there by that point in time.
OK, Richo, I want to move to vaccines. The United States has a whole heap, millions of vaccines sitting in a warehouse that are about to expire. We've asked them to send them to Australia. It looks like they're ignoring our request. Should we give priority? Should we back off on that because they want to give priority to second and third world countries who are being a little threatened by China at the moment? What's your call?
Well, I think there's more to it than that, in the sense that we as a wealthy nation, where our citizenry by and large is in good health, much better basic health than a lot of developing nations, I think we can afford to be a bit generous and let some of these things go elsewhere.
Prue,
I might say, by the way, on commenting on Campbell Newman, that a rat dressed up in a tuxedo is still a rat.
Love it. I still like your pale, stale and male, Holly. Prue, I can't believe what's going on in Victoria. They've got these connected cases to previous infections. The Wangaratta sewage wasn't infected after all, and they've still got the entire state locked down.
No, he wants to be seen to be acting and talking tough. There's no logic to it, of course. I have friends in, regional Victoria. They're furious, absolutely apoplectic with him, as is a lot of members of the Victorian state, from what I gather. But what? He's run out of aces. This is what he does. He locks down. He's like a little nervous Nelly that, God help, lock up your daughters, lock up everybody when you go to Victoria.
I want to talk about NRL fans who've been told during the week, and we raised this last week on the program, that if they want to go to stadiums in 2022, they've got to make sure that they're double vaxxed. I thought at the time, that's fair enough. I'll get into the stadium because I'm double vaxxed. But then I hear the NRL boss, Peter V'landys, say that he won't be forcing the same rule on his players. This is him earlier in the week.
Look, that could be some employers' view, but in rugby league we certainly won't be doing that. Players have got freedom to liberties and religious beliefs, so it's a bit hard to have a blanket policy on everyone.
Gee, Holly, that's a bit soft. You can't say, you come into the game to watch, but you've got to be double vaxxed. But as for the players, they'll get off.
Look, I think the NRL's got a number of issues around its image, and we've seen our fantastic Olympians out there encouraging people to get vaccinated. If the NRL wants to be taken seriously by a lot of people in the community, they should be having their players out there as leaders. Those people should be demonstrating and leading from the front.
Yeah.
I find it really strange to say you can come in, but we're not going to implement the same for our players unless you're double vaxxed. So
exactly. They've got high
protocols. I think it's a disappointing call.
Yeah, they've got high protocols.
It's a disappointing call.
How much better does it get if they're double vaxxed? I've got to leave it there. Holly Hughes, also Prue McSween and Graham Richardson, thank you for your time. Have a great week.
You too. Thanks,
Hey, guys.
Smithy.
Good on
Bye,
you.
guys.
Coming up